Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation about the Picture Exchange Communication System, which is also known as PECS. Today we're specifically going to talk about phase 1, which is where we start. So this is just a quick video of a preference assessment. So that's kind of where you're going to figure out what your child wants. So before you sit down to work on PECS, you're going to have to do a preference assessment to see what's really motivating for them at that time.
Before we can start phase 1 of PECS, we're first going to need to do a preference assessment. So to do a preference assessment, we're just going to find some things in the house that your child might like. I have a ball and a slinky. So to do the preference assessment, I'm just going to hold them out. And which one the child reaches towards is the one that we're going to use for the first phase of PECS. So we reached for the slinky. So I'm going to then take the picture of the slinky to put on our textbook, and that's where we're going to start with phase 1.
So that's just a very quick video explaining how to really get a feeling for what your child wants to work for at that moment. You can also just notice what your child's going over towards if it's out at home, and then use that as your reinforcer. So phase 1, the end goal is that when your child sees a highly preferred item, so something they really want, they will pick up a picture of that item. They will reach towards you or whoever is working with them as the communication partner, and they will release it. So they will let it go into the partner's hand. So this is all done within arm's reach, and there's only one picture available to the child. So at this point, they don't have to know what the picture is of. They don't have to be able to look at the picture and know what that represents. They just are learning to pick up a picture, reach towards you, and drop it into your hand. So the first step of this is that we're going to wait for your child to initiate. So to teach this, again, we start by identifying a powerful reinforcer, and then we withhold it. So let's say it was the slinky like it was in that video. I'm going to play with that slinky. I'll hold it in front of the child, but I'm not going to let them have it yet. I'm also not going to say, do you want the slinky? Because that's a verbal prompt. So I'm going to silently show them what I know they want. I can play with it maybe a little bit to make it more interesting for them. Sometimes if it's a food, you might have to give them one freebie. So give them one piece, a small piece of it, and then hold the rest back and make them ask for it. They're most of the time, depending on what they're working for, they're most likely going to reach for the item. And that reach, them reaching out towards it and trying to take it, that is their initiation. So that means we can move on and do the rest of the steps that we're going to talk about in a minute. But that is the child going first. So that's their going first behavior, or their initiation is them reaching for it. Depending on what you're doing, initiation might look a little different. If you're tickling your child and then you stop and then they kind of look at you and you know they want you to tickle them again, that's also initiation. They're looking at you, they're showing you, or if they pull your hands, that's them initiating too. But we really need to wait until they do something before we prompt them. Like I said before, we're using nonverbal prompting. So as the child reaches for whatever item they're working for, you're going to physically move their hand to the picture of the item, have them remove that from the communication book, reach to the communication partner, who's you, and release the picture into the partner's open hand. We don't say anything while this is happening. It's all physical prompts. And we're going to show a video in just a minute that will make it a little bit more clear. But I really want to just reiterate that we're not speaking while we're prompting. This is also something that I wanted to touch upon, is that there are two different ways that we prompt them. So we'll show two different videos. Ideally, we will have two people prompting the child. That's the way it's supposed to be. However, sometimes it's just you and the child, and so you'll need to prompt them by yourself. So there won't be a second prompter, which is what it's called. We're going to show you a video of both ways because ideally we would love you to use the two-person prompting. However, we have found that even if you use the one-person prompting, it still does work really well for most children. So after they exchange the picture, after they drop it in your open hand, then they immediately get the item or activity that they're working for. Then once we do that, we're going to repeat the whole process. We're going to repeat it over and over and over. So you're going to let them play with the item for a little bit. It says here 15 to 20 seconds, but really just feel out your own child and see how long they need that item for. The key is that we don't want them to get frustrated because we take it back really, really soon, but we also don't want them to get so much of it that they're not willing to work for it anymore. So while they're playing with it, put the picture back in between the two of you or on top of the communication book, and then talk about what they're doing also while they're playing with it. Then when it's time to repeat the practice or practice this again and repeat the exchange, you're going to calmly take away the item. You can say my turn if you want and take it. And then again, wait for them to initiate. So wait for them to reach for that item and physically prompt them to give you the picture again, and then immediately again, give them the item. So continue doing this until there's a few times you can stop. If your child gets bored by the item, you can stop or switch your reinforcer. Or the end goal is for your child to independently pick up that picture, reach towards you, and release it into your open hand. If they do that, if they do it independently, we're going to give them a lot more time with that object because we want them, because they're more independent. So we really want to reinforce that. So here's the video explanation that shows what you would do if it's only you and your child and you don't have a second person to prompt them.
So for phase 1 of PECS, we want to make sure we're within arm's reach of the child. We're pretending that I am the parent or the clinician and Holly's the child. So you want to have the book in between you. We're going to keep it up on this just for the purposes of this video, but you wouldn't need that in real life. But this is just so that you can see it within the video. So if a slinky is really reinforcing to Holly, that's what we're using right now. She really likes it. If we take a slinky away, she starts crying, or it's a toy she always goes to. It's something she's really going to work for. So we've identified our reinforcer, and we have the matching picture symbol on the cover of the book. Now what I'm going to do is silently entice Holly. So that means I'm not saying any words, but I'm kind of just showing her the toy, showing her what it can do. But I'm not going to say, oh, look, I have a slinky. And now she's reaching for it. So that's her initiation. So I'm going to silently prompt her to pick up the picture symbol, reach out towards me, release it into my hand. Then I'm going to say slinky and give it to her. So a few things there. I waited until she initiated, until she reached. And then I silently prompted her hand down. So we're going to show it to you now without talking through it. Slinky. And then once she has the slinky, you can model a lot of language. So you could say slinky, and we could go up and down with the slinky. And that's when you can do a lot of the language modeling. What I'm not going to do, I'll do a non-example, is if I have it, at the beginning, I'm not just going to say, oh, you want the slinky when she hasn't done anything and prompt her. I'm also, if she reaches for it, I'm not going to say, give me the picture symbol. I need this picture. Put the picture in my hand, because we're using no verbal prompts. So it's just silently moving her hand, making her pick it up, and making her put it in my hand. Once she's gotten really good at that, I'm going to try to fade my prompts out a little bit. So now when she reaches, I might just have to put her hand on the picture and give her an open hand, and she knows what to do. I say slinky and give it to her. After she plays with it for a little bit, I say my turn and take it back and do it again. We want to keep fading those prompts. So eventually she might just reach for it, and all I have to do is give an open hand, slinky, and then she gets it. So we want them to be successful, but we want to give them as little of a prompt as possible. So we're going to start with that full physical, fully moving her through the whole thing, then go to maybe just a partial physical of putting her hand on it. Maybe we just need a gesture or an open hand.
Okay, so that video showed you how to prompt your child to request using PECS if it's just you and your child. However, if there is a second person available to be a second prompter, this next video will show you how to teach them that way.
So for the first phase of PECS, if you have a prompter available, you're going to have the communication partner sitting in front of the child. You're going to have, and the silent prompter sitting behind the child. And the purpose of the silent prompter is just to aid the child in picking up the picture and exchanging it silent, and that person will be silent. So when I have a silent prompter available, I'm still going to hold up the item to try to entice the child. Once they reach for it, the silent prompter is going to bring their hand down, pick up the picture, release the card into the hand, and then say Slinky or what label the item. And as always, you're going to try to fade the prompting. So next time, my turn. When the child reaches for the item, the silent prompter can pick up the picture, but then the child released the card into my hand independently. And I'll take it back again and say, my turn. And this time, the child may only need a gestural prompt. Slinky. My turn. And then the last time, this child may be able to independently pick up the pictured card on their own. Slinky. And those were the various prompting levels with a silent partner.
So one important thing to point out is that no matter how many people you're using to prompt your child, whether it's just you or if you have that second prompter, we always need to wait for them to initiate. So now that we've seen the videos and we've seen kind of what the process looks like, let's talk about what happens if they don't reach out for that item or if they don't show you in some way that they want it again. So really what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rethink their reinforcing item. That's our first step. So that's clearly not something that they will actually work for at this moment. Reinforcers can change from day to day, from hour to hour, from minute to minute. So your child might have worked for that for 1 or 2 exchanges, and now they want to work, or they're going to need to work for something new because that's not reinforcing enough to them anymore. So when that happens, we can think about it and we can help you brainstorm. Your child's classroom teacher can help you brainstorm with things that they might work for at home. A lot of times we see some students, especially our younger learners, that sometimes they need an activity instead because that's really where they are in their development. They need more of that movement and sensory input. They need an activity instead. So for example, it might be throwing them on the couch and letting them crash. It might be giving them a big hug or squeezing them. It might be running with them or any kind of activity you can do, any kind of activity they really love. A lot of our kids also like being flipped upside down. So just anything that you can think of, we can have them request. We don't really like to do this, but in some instances, if they won't request anything else, if they're really a child that just wants to be left alone sometimes, we can have them request all done. So we could have them do something and then have them request all done, and then we give them their space and they don't have to do that anymore. But again, that should be more of a last resort. We really want it to be more of a positive thing of, oh, I give this picture to someone and I get what I want. I get good stuff. Also think about, is their access to it too frequent or too long? So can they get this anytime they want? If they can, it will not be as reinforcing because it won't really be as special to them. So for those children that are more difficult to find reinforcers for them, we might want to put them away when we're not working on PECS so that when you bring them out, they're new, they're special, they're really going to work for those. And then the last bullet point here, we're going to kind of carry over onto the next slide. But it says, have you created the need for your child to interact with you to get access to what they want? So that would be more looking at how have you set up the environment that they're in to make them need to communicate with you. So that brings us over to some of our tips for PECS at home. The first bullet point, again, is create an environment that requires them to communicate. So if they're eating, if it's snack time for them, we're going to give them maybe 2 goldfish at a time. They're not going to get a whole bag or a whole bowl, a whole bunch of goldfish. They're going to have to ask for that over and over and over to really get that practice in. Like I said before, keeping toys away somewhere, either on a high shelf, or in a cabinet or in a box that your child can't open. We really want to make a reason for them to communicate, or else they won't need to, and then it won't really have a purpose. This is also something you can think about, that even if you have their favorite thing, is there a toy out in the room that you're in, or does your child know where another toy is that they like, maybe not quite as much, but they still really like it? Do they have access to other toys when you're holding the one that they really, really want, or other items when you're holding the item that they really, really want? Another tip for using PECS at home is to think of it as homework. A lot of our children do not receive homework either because they're too young or it's just not appropriate for them. You can think of PECS as homework. So dedicate a specific time to work just on PECS. We try to get at least 30 to 40 exchanges per day. So that's 30 to 40 times that they're picking up the picture, reaching out towards you, and dropping it in your open hand. But that doesn't need to be all at once. So they might request bubbles 5 times, and then maybe in a little bit they'll request some blocks 10 times, and then they're going to request to be squished 12 times. So it doesn't need to be all at once. It definitely doesn't need to be all the same item. We just want to get them doing it as frequently as possible. It would be fantastic if they could request all day long. So if you see them reaching for something, if you can quickly get a picture symbol, put it in front of them, have them pick it up and put it in your hand, and then you give them the item, that's amazing. And that's how they'll make the most progress, is if you use it more frequently, they'll learn it faster, just like everything else. Pick a spot that the communication book can kind of live in your house, that the child has access to. So this is a good time to talk about the fact that you should treat this book as your child's voice. So they are in charge of it. This is not a place for us to keep pictures of things like sit down. It's not a place to just keep things for us to tell them what to do. It's really belongs to the child, and it should only have pictures in it, especially at first, should only have pictures in it of things that your child really likes, not what we want them to do, but what they want to tell us that they want to do. So keeping it in a specific place, especially during phase 1, is really helpful because you'll always know where it is. Eventually, we want it moving around with your child, so they would carry it from room to room, but we're not quite there yet. If you're struggling to think of reinforcers, again, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you brainstorm. And then if you need picture symbols, so you'll hopefully come across some things at home and think, hey, they really like this, but I don't have a picture of it. You can feel free to reach out to us either via email or Seesaw or Google Classroom, whatever your child is using to, or whatever you're using to communicate with your child's teacher and or SLP. Feel free to reach out to us on that and let us know, hey, I need a picture of chicken nuggets, or I need a picture of bath time, because they really like bath time. They love the water. So feel free to reach out and we can get those made for you. If your child's coming to school every day, we can print out the pictures and laminate them and put Velcro on them and put them in their book when we send it home. If your child's learning virtually right now, we can print it, again, laminate it, get Velcro on it, and then you can come pick it up. So that is the end of our presentation for today. I know that's a lot that we just threw out at you. So feel free to watch this as many times as you need to. There's also a handout that you can reference if you learn better that way. But if you've watched this and you still don't feel like you really understand what's happening, or if you try it with your child and you have questions, always feel free to reach out to us. We can explain it again over the phone, or we can have a Google Meet with you where we show you live one-on-one what to do and you can ask us questions. Just really anytime you have a question, you're concerned about something, or anytime something really great happens, we love that too. So if you want to tell us, hey, they just did this independently, we'd love to hear from you guys. Our information's at the bottom here, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns.